my name is Cassy. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus, and I'm living in freedom from drugs, alcohol, sexual impurity, and many other things. So it took me way too long to grow up. I could place blame in many areas, but today I choose to forgive a lot of people, myself included, and this, I believe, is one of the key components to the beginning of this new life that's being created. I endured molestation, abandonment, violence, rejection, poverty, drunkenness, shame, guilt, and more before I even reached 10. Early on in life, I adapted to accepting the wrong touches, and this carried throughout. It caused me to allow myself to be used sexually and to have a distorted view of love. It made me feel dirty and as if something was wrong with me, which added to how I already felt like an outsider. I can't stress to you enough how important it is to pay attention to your children. And if something's off, please help them. Growing up, my grandmother used to say that my parents were never meant to be, which told me that I wasn't supposed to be as well. There was a lot of gossip, a lot of bitterness, and evil words spoken by both sides. I automatically learned to manipulate, to trying to control how they felt about me. If I was on their side, surely they would love me. My father was abusive to my mother, and they were both alcoholics and addicts, and they were divorced by the time I was 3. I felt my dad left because he didn't want us. I began rejecting God, my mother, pretty much full on. I'd witnessed a lot of things from her that contradicted what I believed Christianity to be, and really all I wanted for a long time was my dad. I'd never been nurtured by my mom, and that's what I was searching for between both of my parents. I also spent quite a long time searching it out in men, go figure, because of this. What I can say that my mother did for me, which is the greatest gift of all, is that from being in church all the time, I developed a love for Jesus. And like a verse in the Bible says, Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. It has become my reality. When my father came back, I realized quickly he hadn't changed. He was still very abusive, drank and did drugs. I was very jealous of my stepmom, and she was of me too, because, well, my dad didn't beat on me, so that was my perception. I'd been allowed to drink and smoke marijuana here and there, and it was like a privilege to be able to do so in that house. In my father's house, I felt like a slave. My stepmom and I did all the house cleaning. I cooked. My dad and stepmom stayed high and drunk, constantly trashing the house. So when she was lacking, I was picking up the slack, and it really just made it unenjoyable, and I was turned off of a domestic style life, marriage style life. My dad verbally abused me about my weight a whole lot, especially when he was drunk. But then he would love me so much on other days and say things like I was beautiful and all of that. So I was confused, and I was very lonely. I ended up dating someone. He was a decent guy. Really, he was nothing like the guys that my dad would suggest, and those guys would try stuff with me, and I always felt like a piece of meat around him. This guy, he didn't want me drinking, he didn't want me doing drugs, he played ball, he had a vision for his life. When my dad found out, though, he beat me for the first time, and I snuck out that night and ran away. I endured a lot of verbal abuse and looks for months before my mom could get me away from him. I literally prayed, and I wished he would die. Within the year, he was dead. He died after he apologized to me for doing what he did, and he said he just wanted me to be happy, and he didn't care who that was with. He also begged me not to do crystal meth, but he was way too late for that. So when he died, of course I blamed myself, and I began a spiral that's taken a lifetime to break free from. I was rejected from his side of the family, and from there I went inside myself. I also began an unhealthy pattern of allowing people to hurt me. I was afraid if I felt hate, more people would die. My mother worked out on the road, and just 3 months after watching my father pass, I had dropped out of school, met a boy, became addicted to crystal meth, and became pregnant. I'd already become a blackout alcoholic, the trait I inherited from my father that I hated the most. I was arrested for my first DUI at the age of 17. And with that being said, over the span of my life, I've been arrested approximately 35 times. I've went to 15 treatment centers by choice, and the last 5 years of my life has been the first that I have not gained a charge. I attracted toxic, and I was toxic, and the family, friends, and relationships that I had in general were never anything but that. I yearned for different, but I had no clue how to break away from myself or to be better for my kids. So God kept sending me respite. It was in the form of the police. I began to read the Word and take advantage of Bible studies, and then I started holding some myself. In doing so, He showed me who I really resonated with deep down, past all the mess that I was, the Proverbs 31 woman. He also showed me how I was acting and verbatim who I had become. Proverbs 11:22 says, like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who lacks discretion. If that doesn't shake a woman living in sin, I really don't know what will. I knew there was a lot of work to do, and honestly, my spirit and my mind was down for it. But I was homeless, and I battled not having safe places or family to turn to, so I would continue to self-medicate, yet still, my arrest rates were dropping. Romans 7:19 says, for I do not do the good that I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep doing. I wanted to be rid of my afflictions. I wanted to be a mom, but running was my answer. I had no coping skills. I had no idea why I was such a mess. And at that point, I didn't even know that I was traumatized. Beyond that, I didn't want to forgive, and I was still blaming everyone else for my choices. For years, I was homeless because my mother and I were completely toxic. I had become an addict, obviously, at 13, and because she had let me live on my own at 16 without supervision, the respect that I should have for her just was not there. Really, I don't think I had too much to begin with. That's just another thing that God had to teach me through all the losses I suffered in life. I didn't know how to respect anything. There are plenty of stories, but all of that, I just really want to say, is that I know my mother did the best with what she had. And I've had to forgive myself for being such an entitled and disrespectful child. However, in my early 20s, we fought all the time. I was completely trapped in a cycle of addiction and the system. Before CSI was put in Pulaski County Jail, shout out CSI, I lived there. CSI. I lived there, literally. Honestly, can't tell you how many times I was picked up for things like being passed out on a sidewalk, taken to the hospital because I was barely breathing. If not there, my primary place was jail. I've had so many public intoxes, non-payments of fines, FTAs. I had domestic batteries with my family members, child endangerments from drinking while driving, and more. In 2016, I got my first and only dope charge. That's what finally at least placed me on felony probation. In 2017 or 18, I was picked up sitting on my duffel bag behind a gas station in Little Rock, down in a fifth of vodka. I don't remember anything besides that, but I know that I was thrown in the turtle suit, had my mugshot taken, and was released at 3 a.m. still drunk and staggering. I had a warrant in Faulkner County and should have never been released. Down Roosevelt, I was jumped, drugged to a house, and beaten, raped all night long. I felt my release, the rape, and the fact I was walking free was a setup to kill me for some reason. I ran to Chicago with a friend. From there, I went to Pennsylvania on an adventure to Boston. And well, I got robbed and stranded in Pennsylvania. I even woke up in the hospital at one point. I'd been walking for weeks without a phone, without knowing a soul, sleeping in the rain, all kinds of stuff. I had a double case of pneumonia, and the doctor told me not to leave, that somebody had to pick me up. I was still in psychosis, plus severely sick. I thought they were holding me for Arkansas to come get me. Like I literally broke out of the hospital and found my way back to the place I'd just been taken into a few days prior. The family that I was with nursed me back to health. I'll never forget them. And even though my memory isn't great, I remember that address in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. During the time there, my youngest 2 children were taken away from my mother. And I was so angry. After all, in my mind, I was always being kept from my kids. I was angry because I never found it fair that she was getting to be with my kids, and I was in the streets, but she did the same things I did. I was sick of being arrested. I wanted them to have different. I just didn't know how to be that at all. I finally made it to Arkansas and got into GIST House, a behavior modification program. They were always on my case. I got told about myself a lot there. I was a people pleaser, attention seeker, and I could not stand my stuff being pointed out. So I manipulated the system to move to Dorcas House so I could have my children with me. Yeah. I didn't hear Vince Liddell when he told me to leave those kids alone and fix me. I wanted it how I wanted it, and I was determined to be with those kids that I hadn't been parenting all along. At Dorcas House, I was introduced to a lot of different classes that did help me get closer to God. I was introduced to First and LR, Sandra Mason, Pastor Lane, and what now is Forever Free, all in which has been such a cornerstone in my life. I didn't complete Dorcas House. I moved into an apartment in Levy with my kids, still without a clue how to live, and I was a big-time rule breaker back then. I placed way too much on my shoulders. I began self-medicating by taking my kids' ADHD medication. Then someone gave me a car. I didn't have a license. I shouldn't have been driving anyway. One night I got in the car, I blacked out because I was drinking at night. When I came to, the airbags were deployed. The front bumper was torn off. I was climbing out the driver's side window, and I was walking the highway around Valonia going towards BB. A state trooper caught up with me, and he asked me about the car. I knew right then that everything that I loved was gone. I told him my kids were at home in bed and that we knew no one in that area, and I needed to get home. I also told him I had a DHS case open that I was working on having closed. He racked me with 8 charges, and he let someone come get me. I then got a ride and attempted to hide my oldest 2 boys, Wade and Cameron, in Tennessee with my mother because they weren't on the DHS case. I went back into rehab hoping to save what had happened with Christian and Storm. DHS told me there was nothing else I could do, and I refused to sign my rights, thinking that I was being loyal to my kids. I'll never forget Christian saying, "But you've been doing everything right," because he remembered me at Dorcas House. When they took them from my person, the combination of those words and these people taking them from me made me feel like I was gutted, literally, right there on the spot. How I failed them killed me inside out. While in rehab, this really, really nice guy, he was really nice looking. Rehab romance, it's great. He started slipping me $100 bills, and he wanted to take me out after I graduated. He didn't take me out. He pulled up to this sleazy hotel, and there I stood feeling obligated to do something again. I got pregnant. Then I found out he was married. Winner, great. We had an abortion because I felt this was what I needed to do, although I've never agreed with it, and I hated myself even more then. I felt as if that child would be taken too. I then ran to Tennessee, intending to do right by my oldest 2, but that wouldn't be the case. When I got picked up in Tennessee, DHS visited me over my oldest 2 boys, and I had just had enough of dragging them through everything. They'd been taken from my mom there as well, and I made the decision to sign my rights over so they could begin to heal early and have a chance at life for once. I wanted to change so that they never find me where I was. I never wanted them to feel like I didn't love them or that I didn't want them. I never wanted them to feel how I did as a child, but I did exactly all of that. I've had to learn I can't change for anyone but for myself and God. But my kids are definitely my why. In prison, a lot changed me. I worked hard on myself. I chose to change negative behaviors and patterns, mindsets, and I began separating myself from people who reminded me of my old ways. When I got out of prison, I also made one more decision, and that's proven to benefit me. I quit running back to my mom. I established distance, and I've been in no trouble since. I had another fall in 23. I changed towns. I actually moved to Hot Springs and went to Potter's Clay. Yeah, great place. Here, God began teaching me how to worship Him alone when no one was around. This is where I really started building a foundation with Him that eventually would stand firm. However, I left their program shortly after graduation, and I quickly relapsed. After 7 years of being homeless, I had my own parole address, and I got real puffed up thinking that I was doing it all. I lived right downtown, close to all the bars, and met all the right, wrong people. I loosened my boundaries, began getting wasted, waking up next to different men, disgusted and trapped. I literally could feel how I was grieving Holy Spirit, and it broke my heart. It really, really broke my heart. One day I remember hitting my knees and begging him to close the doors that he wanted closed. I repented and I told him that I would do his will if he gave me a way out. A week or so later, the boyfriend that I had choked me out until my life flashed before my eyes. And then a week after that, I was stabbed in my throat with a broken beer bottle. I went to Invade Transitional Homes and Ministries, finally taking Pastor Lane's suggestion and direction, and made the decision to live for the Lord. I surrendered. I went to a retreat and received healing over my abortion. I finally forgave myself and others. In 2017, the Lord gave me a promise. He gave me my life verse. God makes everything beautiful in its own time, Ecclesiastes 3:11. I stand here today because God gave me people. He gave me a lot of respites, and I kept seeking help beyond lockups. I wouldn't reach out until I was sick of myself, although that was quite often. I literally began going to treatment when I was 21. I never liked what I became when I put something in me. I didn't understand most while I was going through it, and I wanted to die. I cursed while I prayed. I mocked him. I taunted him. And I just say all of that because I feel it's important for you to know that no matter how far any of you run, he's waiting. No matter how ugly, no matter how immoral our deeds, no matter what, he loves us, and he's waiting for our return. I had to become okay with sharing the nasty stories, the embarrassing stories. I had to get okay with being transparent because I knew that he wanted to use me for his glory. And if I wanted to heal and if I wanted to help anybody else, it was imperative to call the darkness within me to light. I learned I'm only as sick as my secrets. I stand before you today as someone who's trusted with a home for women to stay clean and learn to live in. I just recently got released from parole. And mind you, I've been on paper since I was 17 years old. Yeah. God's been restoring my family back to me. He's given me a car through some really God-fearing people. It's amazing. He will work some miracles. He supplies my every need. And it's all because I refused to let the enemy win and because I chose to be obedient to what the Word of God says. I may not have everything restored yet, but I believe in his perfect time it will be. With that being said, step 3 is hands down my favorite step. We make the decision to turn our lives and wills over to the only higher power, Jesus Christ. Making that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of Jesus Christ has done nothing but prove to me to be the only way. To the newcomer, I want you to know that I understand exactly how you feel. I want you to know that you do matter. As a matter of fact, you're the most important person on the block. Real talk. I want to encourage you to stick around and just try Jesus. He says, seek the kingdom first, and everything else will be added unto you. That's Matthew 6:33. I'm a living testament of this being true. Please take your time on yourself, on your process, and listen to the people who tell you the hard things. If you disagree with them and what they say, you probably should listen to them. Yeah. In the meantime, there are plenty of people around that get where you are, and we all have learned how to give grace and be patient because people have been that way with us. Just keep coming back. It works if you work it. I know it has for me. Thank you for letting me share.